Hello, friends. I'm going to read a short selection for you today from this beautiful book that I, in fact, wrote myself, published by W. Norton. It is called Fucked Up Fairy Tales, Sinful Cinderellas, Prince Alarmings, and Other Timeless Classics, and I am reading it today as part of a little celebration by my friend Tales with Tish. And she's doing like a fairy tale a day, where she reads a fairy tale a day to you for the month of February. I'm definitely not going to be able to commit to that much, but I'm going to do a little bit of my part. And today I'm going to read you a little bit from one of my favorite fairy tales in this collection. It's very romantic. It has like a lot of like great plot motifs and arcs. I think it was probably one of the ones I enjoyed working on the most because there were so many different variants of it that I loved smooshing together into my perfect version of the fairy tale. And my title for it is Mule Be in My Heart, and it's a Tunisian folktale, and I think you'd like it. So, once there lived an old widow named Sahar who worked as a weaver. Despite breaking her back to craft luxury fabrics for the city elite, Sahar and her fellow craftswomen were dreadfully underpaid. Her earnings barely covered rent and meager meals. Has anyone used fairy tale evidence to lobby for universal basic income? Shouldn't we be concerned that a widow these days is flipping burgers for minimum wage, just like poor Sahar here was in ancient Tunisia? As if poverty weren't stressful enough, conflicts between her kingdom and a neighboring one led many in the city to tighten their wallets. The guild laid off half of its employees, including Sahar, with no notice. The widow found herself homeless, with only a loaf of bread and a jar of olives. She walked the city to find work, but was turned away at every door, and that night, Sahar slept on a bench just outside the square. The next day was no better. Sahar was back at her bench by dusk, nursing sore feet and a bruised ego, when the town crier began the evening's announcements. The old spice shop is once again open to thrill seekers interested in removing the malevolent spirit that inhabits it, he read from a scroll. Should a citizen survive the night, they will inherit ownership of the property immediately. Should this same citizen perish, we will bury them at no cost to their family in thanks for their attempt to eradicate the haunt. Yada yada yada. You know the drill. I love how this setup crosses over with the Grimm's The Boy Who Went Forth to Learn Fear and like the many other haunted house challenges of folktales. Sahar was aware of the notorious murder house located in a ritzy neighborhood not far from the Sultan's palace. The year before, the shopkeeper was found dead, and every night after, the surrounding residents heard terrible moans coming from within. The shopkeeper's family attempted to exorcise the demon, or ghoul, or whatever was squatting, but when several clerics were lost to the mysterious monster, they abandoned the place. The neighbors, exhausted from sleepless nights and frayed nerves, not to mention a severe dip in property values, lobbied the city to find a solution. That's when this ill-fated challenge was announced. As time passed, only the most desperate citizens attempted to silence the spirit, for no one who walked through the shop door ever walked out again. What have I got to lose? Sahar thought, stretching her cramped muscles. Half a loaf of bread and a couple of olives? At the very least, I'll gain a proper burial. She straightened her back and walked to the shop. A neighbor directed her to a coffee house across the street for a ring of keys, a candle, a tinderbox, and a lot of waivers to sign. Before long, she was settled in the dismal remnants of the spice shop. Bloodstains stretched across moldy carpets and cushions. Walls were cracked from past scuffles. A previous inhabitant had boarded the windows, cutting off any comforting street sounds, and the scent of death still clung to the tattered tapestries. Even Spirit Halloween was too afraid to move in. The main room had several doors, at least one on each wall. The one farthest from the exit looked like it had been repeatedly repaired, with reinforced hinges and 3 large padlocks. So that's where you're hiding, Sahar observed. She shuddered for a moment, then decided to look on the bright side. I never thought I'd spend a night in this part of town before. She pressed herself into a corner of the shop, where she had a full view of the menacing door. As the hours wore on, nothing disturbed her, so she dozed off. Sahar woke just before midnight with a gurgling stomach. She lit her candle and took out her jar of olives, grimacing at the ratio of fruit to juice. She just opened it when the padlocked door across the shop shook with a hard thud. Sahar froze. The door shook again with a second pound, and a third, and a fourth. Something was trying to barge in. Sahar figured she could wait until the fright on the other side broke through, or she could get things over with and confront it. Gritting her teeth, she fumbled for the keys and rushed the door before she could change her mind. The padlocks rattled as the creature repeatedly hurtled against them. It shouted, a strangled baying that sent goosebumps down Sahar's spine. "Calm down," she snapped. "You can batter yourself bloody, or I can let you in like a civilized creature." The thudding and wailing stopped. Sahar paused, unsure if this was a good sign. She thrust a key at the bottom lock, cursing as she dropped it with shaking fingers. Eventually, all 3 padlocks were wrenched off. Sahar bit back her queasiness and opened the door, hiding between it and the wall. A rush of air passed through as the creature entered. Then there was stillness. Sahar peered around the door. Something floated in the middle of the shop, staring back at her. But it was hard to make out its shape, with only the single candle and slivers of lamplight glowing through the boarded windows. Cautiously, Sahar stepped out from behind the door, hugging the wall. Inch by inch, she crab-walked around the border of the room toward the candle in the corner. The creature stayed away, though it bobbed around to keep its own eyes on her. At last, Sahar reached her belongings. "I just want to get a good look at you. That's all," she said slowly. She bent down to grasp the candle and illuminated the monster. That looks like a good spot to stop. I hope you pick this up. You'll get to read the rest of that story. You get to read 24 other stories that I just loved creating for you. So please do recommend it to a friend if you've already read it. Review it if you've already read it. Please, wherever you purchase the book or on one of those like book tracker thingies. I would love that. Okay? Thanks. I love you. Bye. Fucked Up Fairy Tales with Liz. Fucked Up Fairy Tales with Liz.